Have you ever heard of the Battle of Al-Qadisiyyah?
Probably not. Most haven't.
But it's this clash way back in 636 AD that's, well, it's crucial, actually.
Empires colliding.
Yeah, empires. The course of history shifting right there in the sources you sent over for today's deep dive.
It's a battle that decided the fate of the Sassanid Empire, one of the ancient world's true superpowers.
Okay, so the Sassanid Empire, for those of us who haven't, cracked open a history book lately.
They'd stood for centuries. But in 636 AD, they faced a challenge unlike any they'd seen before, the rise of the Rashidun Caliphate.
Okay, back up just a bit. Who exactly were the Rashidun Caliphate? I mean, they sound like a big deal.
They were. Imagine a new power emerging, fueled by a dynamic faith.
Okay.
And some impressive military victories already under their belt. They had just taken on chunks of the Byzantine Empire.
Wow.
But the Sassanid Empire,
Yeah.
that was a whole different ballgame.
Right, because you said superpower, centuries old. I'm picturing like advanced cities, powerful military, the whole 9 yards.
Exactly. Now, it's true that by 636 AD, the Sassanids weren't at their peak. Decades of war with those Byzantines, even the mightiest empires.
Right.
But they were still a force to be reckoned with.
I bet.
And that's what makes the Battle of Al-Qadisiyyah so fascinating. How did this seemingly newer, less powerful force manage to deliver such a decisive blow?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And from the looks of these sources, it's a story full of twists and turns.
Oh, yeah.
For starters, can we talk about the elephant in the room?
Literally.
Or rather, on the battlefield. The Sassanids literally marched into battle with war elephants.
They did.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine being a soldier on the Rashidun side?
Yeah.
Facing an army twice your size, and then these behemoths come lumbering over the horizon. Talk about psychological warfare.
You're not kidding. It's almost surreal, but it sounds like the Rashidun Caliphate had a secret weapon of their own. Their general, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas.
Said Mani Waqqas, a brilliant strategist. The sources describe how he used the terrain to his advantage.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Effectively neutralizing those fearsome elephants and outmaneuvering the much larger Sassanid forces.
So it wasn't just about brute force. It was like strategy, cunning, maybe even a little outsmarting the opponent.
Precisely. The Rashidun Caliphate, though maybe smaller in number, were incredibly organized, strategic in their approach to warfare.
Interesting.
And their military successes had a powerful effect on the morale of their troops as well. Many Muslim warriors saw their victories as divinely ordained, a sign that they were destined to succeed.
So we've got strategy on one side, faith fueling their efforts on the other. But I have a feeling there's more to this story than meets the eye.
Oh, yeah?
There's this whole section in here, in the sources, about espionage. Espionage during the Battle of Al-Qadisiyyah.
Can you imagine?
I mean, really?
What's fascinating is that there are accounts of a sophisticated intelligence network operating within the Sassanid Empire, loyal to the Rashidun Caliphate.
Wait, hold on. So we're talking about spies like embedded within the Sassanid ranks. This is like something out of a spy thriller. Where do we even begin to unpack this?
Well, imagine this. You're a Sassanid general, confident in your plans.
Right.
But what you don't know is that someone in your inner circle, someone you trust, is feeding information directly to your enemy.
Talk about a breach of trust. But how much of an impact could these spies have really had on the outcome of the battle? I mean, it's one thing to gather intel, but to actually influence the course of such a massive conflict.
That's the question, isn't it? And based on these sources, it seems their role was much bigger than just gathering intel. These weren't just passive observers. No, they were strategically placed individuals, really. Some in positions of considerable influence, I'd say.
Oh, wow.
Who could subtly nudge decisions or plant seeds of doubt within the Sassanid leadership.
It's giving like Trojan horse, but on a much grander scale.
Yeah.
Did these spies, did they have any particular objectives? Or were they just trying to like sow general chaos?
The sources, they point to a combination of both.
Okay.
There were those tasked with, the usual gathering intelligence on troop movements, battle plans, that sort of thing.
Right.
But there were others,
Yeah.
more cunning perhaps, who were playing a longer game, you see.
Wow. How so?
They might spread rumors, exacerbate existing tensions within the Sassanid court,
Oh, I see.
all to weaken their resolve.
Wow.
From within.
A true wolf in sheep's clothing scenario. Do the sources mention anything about who these spies were, like how they were recruited in the first place?
Details are scarce,
Right.
but there are accounts of skilled orators.
Yeah.
intellectuals,
Okay.
who would travel to the Sassanid court,
Mm-hmm.
ostensibly seeking patronage or sharing their knowledge. But beneath that veneer of a scholarship,
Yeah.
they were gathering intel,
Yeah.
identifying individuals susceptible to, well, persuasion
Mm.
or bribery.
It makes you wonder about the kind of person who could lead that kind of double life. The constant fear of exposure, the moral complexities, it's a lot to grapple with.
Indeed. And it speaks to the multifaceted nature of warfare, especially in those times. It wasn't always about brute force.
Right.
Espionage, diplomacy, propaganda, these were all weapons in their arsenal.
So these spies, these whispers in the ear of the Sassanid Empire, were they a decisive factor in the outcome of the battle? We've got a smaller but very strategic force in the Rashidun Caliphate
Yes.
going up against this centuries-old superpower. It's like a David and Goliath situation.
It's hard to say definitively, of course, but the sources suggest that these whispers, this web of espionage, played a crucial role in weakening the Sassanids' resolve, sowing chaos within their ranks. Remember those internal struggles we mentioned earlier?
Right, like dissent within the ranks, maybe even betrayal.
Exactly. The presence of these spies working from within, it would have amplified those tensions, you see.
Yeah.
They could have exploited rivalries, turned allies against each other, all under the cover of secrecy.
It's like that saying, united we stand, divided we fall. And in the case of the Sassanids, it seems like these divisions, these whispers of doubt, betrayal, they played right into the hands of the Rashidun Caliphate. But even with all that, I have to imagine the actual battle itself was still a monumental clash.
Oh, yes.
What did the sources say about the experience on the ground, so to speak?
Well, we're fortunate to have accounts from both sides of the conflict,
Wow.
offering, glimpses into the reality of this historical showdown.
Wow.
There's one particularly compelling description from a Sassanid soldier, actually, detailing the brutal conditions, the scorching desert heat, the exhaustion of the troops,
I can imagine.
and the sheer terror he felt watching the Rashidun cavalry charges just sweeping across the battlefield.
It's one thing to, read about it, to get caught up in the grand narratives of history, the pronouncements of victory and defeat.
Right.
But to hear it described like that,
Right.
to feel the fear of that soldier, it brings it all home in a whole new way.
It does. And it's a good reminder that behind every grand battle, every clash of empires, there were countless individual stories, experiences of unimaginable hardship, courage, and loss.
Speaking of those individual stories, we've talked about the spies, the soldiers, but what about the everyday people, the ones caught in the middle of all this, the citizens of the Sassanid Empire? What became of them after their world was, turned upside down?
That's a crucial aspect of this story, and it's where we see the ripple effect of the Battle of Al-Qadisiyyah extending far beyond the battlefield. With the fall of the Sassanid Empire came a profound cultural shift.
Right, because the Sassanids weren't just a military power. They had their own distinct culture, religion, way of life. So what happened to all of that? Did it just disappear overnight?
Not quite. What's interesting is that the sources point to a degree of religious tolerance from the Rashidun Caliphate. Now, this doesn't mean there wasn't conflict or tension, but it wasn't a campaign of forced conversion either. People of other faiths, including those following the Sassanid religion, Zoroastrianism, were allowed a degree of autonomy.
Interesting.
They weren't forced to abandon their beliefs entirely.
So it was more a merging of cultures than a complete erasure of one by the other.
It was a complex process, nuanced. Think of it like this. You have two very different cultures suddenly forced to coexist, to find a way to live together.
I see.
They were bound to,
Yeah.
growing pains, clashes of ideology and tradition.
Absolutely. I can only imagine the adjustments people had to make, the compromises, the inevitable tensions. Right?
And those tensions, sometimes they did boil over.
Yeah.
The sources mention pockets of resistance, uprisings that flared up in the years following the battle.
Makes sense.
It's a reminder that these historical transitions, they're rarely smooth, straightforward.
It makes you think about the human cost of these historical shifts.
Yeah.
Behind the grand narratives of empires rising and falling, there were real people, families, entire communities grappling with the aftershock.
And those aftershocks, those echoes of the past, they can reverberate for generations. Think about the ways the Battle of Al-Qadisiyyah continues to shape our understanding of the region, even today.
It's a powerful reminder that history isn't just something we read about in textbooks, right?
Hmm.
It's alive, it's complex, and it continues to shape our world in ways both big and small. And speaking of things that continue to shape our world, we can't forget about those whispers of espionage. Where did we leave off with those shadowy figures lurking in the background of history?
Oh, they're fascinating, aren't they? Those whispers, those shadowy figures. They're a testament, really, to the fact that sometimes the most significant battles, they aren't fought out in the open,
Right.
but in the shadows. Remember, we were talking about those individuals, those master manipulators embedded within the Sassanid court.
Oh, I haven't forgotten. It's like something out of like a spy novel. These figures whispering in the ears of kings and generals, subtly steering the course of an empire. It's hard to grasp how much influence they might have had.
The sources suggest it was considerable, their influence. Imagine, just imagine, being a ruler at the height of your power,
Yeah.
surrounded by advisors, confidants, even family, right?
Yeah.
But unbeknownst to you, some are playing a double game,
Wow.
feeding information to your rivals,
Yeah.
subtly undermining your every move.
That's a chilling thought, to have that level of distrust, to
Yeah.
constantly question the motives of those around you.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder about the psychological toll it must have taken on the Sassanid leadership.
Oh, absolutely. That constant suspicion, that fear of betrayal from within, it can paralyze even the strongest of leaders.
Right.
And the sources hint that this atmosphere of paranoia, distrust, well, it created fertile ground for the Rashidun Caliphate's intelligence network to flourish, really.
So it wasn't just about gathering intel. It was about amplifying existing tensions, exploiting weaknesses, turning the Sassanids against themselves from the inside out.
Precisely. These spies, they weren't just, passive observers. They were skilled manipulators, masters of intrigue, who understood the power of information and how to wield it to their advantage.
It makes you realize that the fall of empires, it isn't always about epic battles, clashing armies. Sometimes it's the quiet whispers, the subtle manipulations, the seeds of doubt sown in the dead of night that ultimately bring down the mighty.
The Battle of Al-Qadisiyyah, then, it becomes more than just a clash of armies. It becomes a case study in the multifaceted nature of power, you see. The way that military might, faith, and cunning espionage can intertwine to reshape the course of history.
And it's a reminder that the stories we tell about the past, the ones that make it into the history books, they're often just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the surface, there are countless untold stories, hidden currents, and shadowy figures who played a pivotal role in shaping the world as we know it.
The Battle of Al-Qadisiyyah, then, it becomes an invitation to dig deeper, you see, to question the narratives we think we know, and to appreciate the complex tapestry of events that have shaped our world.
It's a reminder that history is never black and white. There's always more than meets the eye, and sometimes it's those whispers, those subtle manipulations, those stories hidden beneath the surface that offer the most compelling insights of all.
So the next time you encounter a historical event, don't just accept the official narrative. At face value,
Right.
ask questions, explore different perspectives, and consider the possibility that the most fascinating stories, the most impactful players, they might be lurking just out of sight.
Wise words to ponder. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, listener. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never underestimate the power of a whisper.